The Florida sun was setting on June 21, 2013, casting long shadows across the streets of Jacksonville. 8-year-old Emily Rose Martinez bounced on her toes with excitement as she watched her mother Rebecca pack clothes into a small suitcase. Tomorrow morning, Emily would board a plane to California to spend the entire summer with her father. It was the trip she had been looking forward to for months. Emily was a bright and cheerful child with long brown hair that her mother loved to braid. She had sparkling eyes that lit up whenever she smiled, which was often. At 8 years old, she was the oldest of 3 sisters and took her role as big sister very seriously. She helped her mother with her 2 younger sisters, especially when they went on walks around their Jacksonville neighborhood. Rebecca Martinez was a single mother doing her best to raise 3 daughters on her own. Money was always tight, and she often had to make difficult choices about what they could and could not afford. She worked hard, but still struggled to provide everything her girls needed. Rebecca did not own a car and had never learned to drive, which made simple tasks like grocery shopping more challenging than they should be. Their small apartment was home to Rebecca, her boyfriend, and the 3 girls. It was cramped, but filled with love and laughter. Rebecca tried to give her daughters everything she could, even when it meant going without things for herself. She was especially excited about Emily's trip to California, because she knew how much it meant to her oldest daughter. On this particular evening, Rebecca realized that Emily needed new clothes for her trip. The few outfits Emily owned were getting too small, and Rebecca wanted her daughter to look nice when she met her father. With only $100 to her name, Rebecca knew she had to be very careful with her spending. The money needed to cover not just clothes but also household items and the cost of getting to the airport the next morning. Rebecca decided to take all 3 girls to the Dollar General store on Edgewood Avenue. It was about a 20-minute walk from their apartment, but Rebecca was used to walking everywhere with her daughters. She loaded the 2 younger girls into their stroller and asked Emily to walk beside her as they made their way through the neighborhood. The walk to Dollar General was pleasant enough. Emily chattered excitedly about her upcoming trip, asking questions about the airplane and wondering what California would look like. Her 2 little sisters giggled in the stroller, enjoying the evening air. Rebecca listened to Emily's questions and tried to answer them while keeping an eye on the busy street. When they arrived at Dollar General, the store was fairly busy with other customers doing their evening shopping. Rebecca pushed the stroller through the narrow aisles while Emily held onto the side. They made their way to the clothing section, where Rebecca began looking through the small selection of children's clothes. The prices were reasonable, but Rebecca quickly realized that $100 would not go very far. She needed to buy Emily several outfits, but she also needed household items like soap and food. She found herself doing math in her head, trying to figure out how to make the money stretch far enough. Emily was patient as her mother looked through the clothes. She understood that money was tight and never complained when they could not afford the things she wanted. Instead, she helped her mother by holding clothes up to herself to see if they might fit. She was a good child who rarely caused trouble. As Rebecca continued shopping, she became aware of a man watching them from across the aisle. He appeared to be in his 50s, with graying hair and an average build. He was dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt. At first, Rebecca tried to ignore him, thinking he was just another customer going about his business. But the man kept looking in their direction. Rebecca felt uncomfortable but told herself she was probably imagining things. She had always been protective of her daughters, sometimes worrying that she was being too cautious. She did not want to be one of those mothers who saw danger everywhere. The man eventually approached them. He had a friendly smile and spoke in a calm, reassuring voice. He introduced himself as William Thompson and said he had noticed Rebecca looking at clothes for her daughters. He seemed like a grandfather type, the kind of person who might have grandchildren of his own. Thompson told Rebecca that he had been watching her try to find clothes that fit her budget. He said his wife had a $100 Walmart gift card that they were not going to use. He explained that his wife would be happy to meet them at the nearby Walmart and help them buy clothes for the girls. Rebecca felt suspicious about the offer. Her mother had always taught her not to talk to strangers, and she had passed the same lesson on to her own daughters. But Thompson seemed genuine in his desire to help. He spoke kindly about the children, and said he understood how difficult it could be to raise 3 daughters alone. The offer was tempting because Rebecca knew that $100 would buy much more at Walmart than at Dollar General. Emily needed several outfits, and the Walmart gift card would allow Rebecca to save her own money for other necessities. She found herself torn between her natural caution and the practical need to stretch her limited budget. Thompson seemed to understand her hesitation. He told Rebecca that he completely understood her concerns about going anywhere with a stranger. He assured her that his wife would be at Walmart waiting for them, and that Rebecca and her daughters would be perfectly safe. He looked directly into Rebecca's eyes as he spoke, his voice calm and reassuring. After several minutes of internal debate, Rebecca made a decision that would haunt her forever. She told Thompson that she normally would never go anywhere with someone she did not know, but if his wife was going to be there, then it would probably be okay. She reasoned that they would be in a public place with lots of people around, which should be safe enough. Thompson smiled and said his wife would be so happy to help. He led Rebecca and her daughters out of Dollar General and toward his white van, which was parked nearby. Rebecca helped her younger daughters into the vehicle while Emily climbed in excitedly, still thinking about her trip to California the next day. As Thompson started the engine, Rebecca felt a small knot of worry in her stomach. Something did not feel quite right, but she could not put her finger on what it was. She told herself that she was just being nervous about accepting help from a stranger. After all, what could go wrong at a busy Walmart store? None of them knew that William Thompson had lied about everything. He had no wife waiting at Walmart. He had no gift card to help buy clothes. What he did have was a long criminal history of hurting children, and he had been released from prison just 3 weeks earlier. As the van pulled away from Dollar General, Emily looked out the window at the familiar streets of her neighborhood, excited about getting new clothes for her big trip. She had no idea that she would never see those streets again. The ride to Walmart was quiet except for the sound of the van's engine and the soft chatter of Emily's younger sisters in the back seat. Rebecca sat in the front passenger seat, still feeling uneasy about accepting help from a stranger. She kept glancing at William Thompson as he drove, trying to read his face and decide if she had made the right choice. Thompson seemed relaxed and friendly as he navigated through the Jacksonville streets. He made small talk about the weather and asked Emily about her upcoming trip to California. Emily, being naturally talkative, shared her excitement about seeing her father and wondered what the beaches in California would look like. Thompson listened with what appeared to be genuine interest, occasionally asking follow-up questions that made Emily feel important. The Walmart on Lem Turner Road was busy for a Friday evening. The parking lot was full of cars, and families were coming and going with shopping carts loaded with groceries and other items. Rebecca felt slightly better seeing all the people around. Surely nothing bad could happen in such a public place with so many witnesses nearby. Thompson parked the van near the front of the store and helped Rebecca get the younger girls out, while Emily climbed out on her own. The automatic doors opened, with a soft whoosh as they entered the brightly lit store. Rebecca had been to this Walmart before, but never with someone offering to spend money on her children. Inside the store, Thompson suggested they head to the clothing section first. He seemed to know his way around, walking confidently toward the children's department. Rebecca pushed a shopping cart while her 2 younger daughters rode inside, and Emily walked beside them, her eyes wide as she looked at all the merchandise. The children's clothing section was much larger than what they had seen at Dollar General. There were racks and racks of clothes in every size and color imaginable. Rebecca felt overwhelmed by all the choices, especially knowing that someone else was supposedly going to pay for whatever they picked out. Thompson told Rebecca to take her time and choose whatever the girls needed. He said his wife had told him to spend the entire gift card if necessary. Rebecca started looking through the clothes, checking sizes and prices while keeping one eye on her daughters. The younger girls were content to sit in the shopping cart, but Emily wanted to explore. As they shopped, Thompson began paying special attention to Emily. He would suggest items for her to try and offered to help her look at clothes in other sections of the store. At first, Rebecca thought he was just being helpful, but she began to notice that he seemed more interested in Emily than in her younger sisters. Thompson suggested that Emily might need new shoes to go with her new clothes. He led her over to the shoe section while Rebecca continued looking at outfits for all three girls. Emily was excited about the possibility of getting new shoes, especially since her current pair was getting too small for her growing feet. Near the shoe section, Thompson showed Emily several pairs of shoes. Some were appropriate for a child her age, but others were clearly meant for grown women. When Thompson suggested a pair of high-heeled shoes, Rebecca quickly intervened. She told him that those shoes were too high and inappropriate for an 8-year-old girl. Thompson seemed disappointed but accepted Rebecca's decision. However, he continued to focus most of his attention on Emily, asking her opinions about different items and treating her as if she was older than her actual age. Emily enjoyed the attention, not understanding that Thompson's interest in her was dangerous. They spent over an hour shopping together, moving from section to section as they looked for clothes and other items. Security cameras throughout the store recorded their movements, though none of the shoppers or employees seemed to notice anything unusual about the group. To anyone watching, they looked like a normal family doing their weekly shopping. Rebecca found herself relaxing as time went on. Thompson continued to be polite and helpful, and nothing threatening had happened. She began to think that maybe she had been too suspicious of his motives. He seemed genuinely interested in helping her daughters get the clothes they needed. Several times during their shopping trip, Thompson would take Emily to different areas of the store. He said he was helping her find better deals or different sizes, and Rebecca allowed it because they were still in the same store where she could see them. Emily seemed happy and comfortable with Thompson, which helped ease Rebecca's remaining concerns. Around 10 o'clock in the evening, an announcement came over the store's loudspeaker system. An employee's voice informed all customers that the store would be closing in 30 minutes. Rebecca realized they had been shopping for quite a long time and needed to start finishing up their purchases. Thompson suggested that they head toward the front of the store to check out, but first offered to buy food for the family. He pointed toward the McDonald's restaurant located inside the Walmart near the main entrance. He said that Rebecca and the younger girls looked tired and hungry, and that he would be happy to treat them all to cheeseburgers and French fries. The offer sounded wonderful to Rebecca, who had been standing and walking for over an hour while trying to keep track of 3 children. Her younger daughters were indeed getting tired and cranky, and the promise of food seemed like the perfect way to end their shopping trip. She agreed to Thompson's suggestion and began pushing the cart toward the front of the store. Emily was excited about getting McDonald's food. She loved hamburgers and was looking forward to eating before they went home. When Thompson said he would take her with him to order the food while Rebecca got in line to pay for the clothes, Emily eagerly agreed to go with him. Rebecca watched as Emily walked alongside Thompson toward the McDonald's area. Emily was skipping slightly, happy about the new clothes and the promise of food. Her long brown hair bounced as she moved, and she looked back once to smile at her mother before disappearing around a corner with Thompson. Rebecca continued toward the checkout lanes with her 2 younger daughters and the cart full of clothes. She expected to meet Thompson and Emily near the registers in just a few minutes, after they had ordered the food and received their meal. She had no way of knowing that the McDonald's inside the Walmart had been closed for hours. The security cameras captured the truth that Rebecca could not see from where she stood. Instead of stopping at the McDonald's restaurant, Thompson and Emily walked directly past it. They continued walking toward the front doors of the store, with Emily still skipping along beside the man she trusted. The automatic doors opened for them, and they walked out into the warm Florida night. Emily looked like any child leaving a store with her grandfather after a successful shopping trip. No one in the parking lot paid any attention to the man and the little girl getting into a white van. Back inside the store, Rebecca finished selecting the last few items and began making her way to the checkout counter. She expected to find Thompson and Emily waiting for her with their McDonald's meals, ready to pay for the clothes with the promised gift card. She had no idea that Emily was already gone forever. Rebecca Martinez pushed her shopping cart toward the checkout area at the front of Walmart. Her 2 younger daughters were getting sleepy after the long shopping trip, but they were still excited about their new clothes. Rebecca felt good about the evening. Thompson had been generous and kind, and Emily was getting the outfit she needed for her trip to California. As Rebecca approached the checkout lanes, she looked around for Thompson and Emily. She expected to see them waiting near the registers with McDonald's bags in their hands. The smell of French fries and hamburgers should have been easy to spot in the busy store. But as Rebecca scanned the area, she did not see them anywhere. Rebecca chose a checkout lane and began unloading clothes from her cart. She kept looking toward the McDonald's area, thinking Thompson and Emily might still be ordering food. Maybe there was a long line, or maybe Emily was taking time to decide what she wanted to eat. Rebecca tried not to worry as the cashier began scanning the price tags on the children's clothes. Minutes passed, and still no sign of Thompson or Emily. Rebecca started to feel uncomfortable. She left her place in line and walked over to the McDonald's with her two younger daughters. When she got close enough to see inside the restaurant area, her heart began to race. The McDonald's was closed. The lights were dim, and there was a metal gate pulled down over the counter. Signs posted nearby showed that the restaurant closed at 9 o'clock every night. It was now after 10:30, which meant the McDonald's had been closed for over an hour. Rebecca felt panic rising in her chest. If the McDonald's was closed, where were Thompson and Emily? She began calling Emily's name loudly, her voice echoing through the store. Other customers turned to look at her, but no one seemed to understand what was happening. Rebecca hurried back to the checkout area, hoping to find Thompson and Emily there. Maybe they had gone to look for her while she was looking for them. But the checkout lanes were full of other customers, and there was no sign of Emily's bright smile or her long brown hair. The panic was growing stronger now. Rebecca abandoned her shopping cart full of clothes and began searching the store more, frantically. She went up and down every aisle, calling Emily's name and asking other customers if they had seen a man with a little girl. Most people shook their heads and continued with their own shopping. Rebecca's voice became more desperate as she searched. She could hear herself getting louder and more frantic, but she could not control it. Her two younger daughters began to cry, confused and frightened by their mother's behavior. They did not understand why Emily was missing or why their mother was so upset. Store employees began to notice the commotion. A few workers approached Rebecca to ask what was wrong. With tears streaming down her face, Rebecca tried to explain that her 8-year-old daughter had gone to McDonald's with a man named Thompson, but now both of them were missing, and the McDonald's was closed. One employee suggested that maybe Thompson had taken Emily to the bathroom or to another part of the store. Another worker offered to make an announcement over the loudspeaker system, asking Thompson to come to the customer service desk. But Rebecca knew in her heart that something terrible had happened. Rebecca realized she needed to call the police, but her cell phone was not working. Earlier that day, one of her younger daughters had dropped the phone in water while trying to clean it. The phone was completely dead, and Rebecca had not been able to afford a replacement. Rebecca began asking other customers if she could use their phones to call for help. Most people were reluctant to get involved. Some pretended they did not hear her, while others made excuses about why they could not help. Rebecca felt desperate and alone as precious minutes ticked by. Finally, after about 40 minutes of searching and pleading for help, a Walmart employee gave Rebecca a phone. Her hands were shaking as she dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, Rebecca could barely speak through her tears and panic. The 911 call was heartbreaking to hear. Rebecca's voice was filled with terror as she tried to explain what had happened. She told the dispatcher about meeting Thompson at Dollar General, about coming to Walmart to buy clothes, and about how Emily had disappeared with a stranger. During the call, Rebecca's worst fears came pouring out. She told the dispatcher that she had a bad feeling about Thompson from the beginning. She said she was afraid that he was going to hurt Emily. Her voice broke as she said the words that no mother should ever have to speak. Rebecca told the 911 operator that she hoped Thompson would not kill Emily, and that she hoped he would not rape her. But even as she said these words, Rebecca seemed to know that her hopes were probably too late. She told the dispatcher that she could not think of any other reason why Thompson would leave the store with Emily unless he planned to hurt her. The dispatcher tried to calm Rebecca down and get important information about Emily and Thompson. Rebecca described Emily as 8 years old with long brown hair, wearing an orange dress with a fruit pattern. She said Thompson was an older white man, but she realized she did not know much about him beyond his name. Rebecca also realized that she could not remember many details about Thompson's van. She knew it was white, but she had not paid attention to the license plate number or any other identifying features. The panic and fear were making it hard for her to think clearly about the details that police would need. While Rebecca was on the phone with 911, police officers were already reviewing the security footage from inside Walmart. The cameras had recorded everything that happened during the shopping trip. They showed Thompson and Emily walking through the store together, and they captured the moment when the two of them left the building. The security video told the terrible truth that Rebecca was beginning to understand. Thompson had never intended to buy food at McDonald's. Instead, he had walked directly past the closed restaurant and headed for the exit doors. Emily had followed him trustingly, still thinking they were going to get hamburgers. The cameras showed Emily skipping alongside Thompson as they walked out of Walmart. She looked happy and carefree, completely unaware of the danger she was in. To anyone watching, they looked like a grandfather taking his granddaughter home after a successful shopping trip. By the time Rebecca finished her 911 call, Emily had been gone for almost an hour. Police were now involved, but every passing minute made it less likely that Emily would be found safe. The nightmare that had begun with an offer to help buy clothes was now a race against time to save a little girl's life. The Jacksonville Police Department received Rebecca Martinez's 911 call at 11:36 p.m. on June 21, 2013. Within minutes, patrol cars were racing toward the Walmart on Lem Turner Road. Every police officer in the area knew that when a child goes missing with a stranger, every second counts in determining whether that child lives or dies. Detective Sarah Johnson was at home watching television with her family when her phone rang. As the lead detective for crimes against children, she was always on call for cases like this one. When she heard the basic details about 8-year-old Emily Martinez, Detective Johnson knew she was dealing with every parent's worst nightmare. Police officers arrived at Walmart while Rebecca was still crying and searching the store with her 2 younger daughters. The officers immediately secured the scene and began interviewing Rebecca about exactly what had happened. They needed to get as much information as possible about Thompson and his vehicle, while the details were still fresh in Rebecca's memory. Rebecca told the officers everything she could remember about meeting Thompson at Dollar General and coming to Walmart. She described Thompson as being in his 50s with graying hair, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. She said his van was white, but admitted she had not paid attention to the license plate or any other details that might help identify the vehicle. While some officers interviewed Rebecca, others were already working with Walmart security to review the surveillance footage. The store had cameras throughout the building that recorded everything that happened during Thompson and Emily's shopping trip. What the cameras showed made the officers' hearts sink. The security video clearly showed Thompson and Emily walking through the store together for over an hour. But the most important footage was from the cameras near the front entrance. The video showed Thompson walking past the closed McDonald's and heading directly for the exit doors, with Emily skipping along beside him. The timestamp on the video showed that Thompson and Emily had left the store at 10:39 p.m. By the time Rebecca called 911, they had been gone for almost an hour. Police knew that in child abduction cases, the first few hours are the most critical for finding the victim alive. Police immediately issued a BOLO alert, which stands for Be on the Lookout. The alert went out to all law enforcement agencies in Florida and neighboring states. It contained Thompson's name and a description of his white van, along with Emily's description and the orange dress she was wearing. At 2:20 a.m., police requested an Amber Alert for Emily Martinez. The Amber Alert system sends emergency notifications to television stations, radio stations, and cell phones to help locate missing children. However, there was a delay in issuing the alert, and it did not go out until 4:21 a.m., almost 5 hours after Emily had disappeared. Throughout the night, dozens of police officers, sheriff's deputies, and volunteers searched the Jacksonville area for any sign of Thompson's white van. They checked parking lots, wooded areas, and abandoned buildings, Search dogs were brought in to help track Emily's scent, but the trail went cold in the Walmart parking lot. Detective Johnson coordinated the search from the police station, working with officers in the field and analyzing every piece of information that came in. She knew that Thompson was likely a sexual predator, which meant Emily was in extreme danger. Every hour that passed made it less likely that Emily would be found alive. Rebecca Martinez spent the night at the police station, answering questions and praying for her daughter's safe return. She called Emily's father in California to tell him what had happened. She also called her own family members, asking them to pray and to help spread the word about Emily's disappearance. As the sun rose on June 22, 2013, the search entered its second day. Police had received dozens of tips from people who thought they had seen Thompson's van, but none of the leads had panned out. The investigation team was running out of places to look and beginning to fear the worst. At 9 a.m., nearly 10 hours after Emily's disappearance, police finally got the break they had been hoping for. Officer Mike Davis was responding to a routine traffic accident on Interstate 95 when he noticed a white van driving past the accident scene. Something about the van caught his attention. Officer Davis remembered the description from the bolo alert and realized that the van matched what they were looking for. He immediately radioed for backup and began following the vehicle. Within minutes, several police cars had surrounded the white van and forced it to pull over. The driver of the van was William Thompson. When officers approached the vehicle with their weapons drawn, Thompson did not resist arrest. He simply put his hands up and surrendered peacefully. The officers handcuffed him and placed him in the back of a patrol car. Thompson was wearing the same clothes he had worn the night before, a black t-shirt and blue jeans. But officers immediately noticed something strange about his appearance. The lower half of his body was soaking wet. His jeans and shoes were completely drenched, as if he had been standing in water. Officers searched Thompson's van thoroughly, but Emily was not inside. The van was empty except for some of Thompson's personal belongings. The stroller that Rebecca had brought to Walmart was gone, along with the bags of clothes they had been planning to buy. Everything connected to Emily and her family had disappeared. Wet clothes on Thompson's lower body told police one important thing. Wherever Emily was, water was involved. Detective Johnson immediately expanded the search to include all bodies of water in the Jacksonville area. She sent teams of officers to search creeks, ponds, lakes, and rivers. At 11:30 a.m., police received a tip from a citizen who said they had seen Thompson's van parked in a wooded area behind a church the night before. The tip led police to a remote location several miles from Walmart, where thick woods surrounded a small creek. Detective Johnson arrived at the scene with search dogs and several other officers. The area was quiet and isolated, the kind of place where someone could commit a crime without being seen or heard. The creek was narrow but deep enough for someone to hide evidence. The search dogs immediately picked up a scent near the creek. They led the officers through thick brush and fallen trees, barking excitedly as they followed the trail. After about 20 minutes of searching, one of the dogs stopped barking and began whimpering. Under a fallen tree that had created a small shelter over the creek, police found what they had been dreading since the search began. Emily Martinez's small body was wedged beneath the log, partially submerged in the shallow water. She was still wearing the orange dress with the fruit pattern that she had put on so excitedly the night before. Detective Johnson had worked many difficult cases during her career, but finding Emily's body was one of the hardest moments she had ever experienced. The little girl who had been so excited about her trip to California would never see her father again. The nightmare that had begun with an offer to buy clothes had ended in the worst possible way. Police immediately secured the scene and called for the medical examiner. Emily's body would need to be carefully examined to determine exactly how she had died and to collect any evidence that might be used in court against Thompson. The search for Emily Martinez was over, but the fight for justice was just beginning. The discovery of Emily Martinez's body in the creek behind the church marked the beginning of one of the most thorough criminal investigations in Jacksonville's history. Detective Sarah Johnson knew that building a strong case against William Thompson would require careful collection of every piece of evidence, no matter how small or disturbing it might be. Dr. Patricia Williams, the chief medical examiner for Duval County, was called to the scene where Emily's body had been found. Dr. Williams had performed hundreds of autopsies during her career, but cases involving children were always the most difficult. She knew that her findings would be crucial in determining exactly what had happened to Emily during her final hours. The scene where Emily was found told part of the story. Her small body had been shoved under a fallen tree in the shallow creek, as if someone had tried to hide her from view. She was still wearing the orange dress with the fruit pattern that she had been so excited to wear to Walmart, but the dress was now torn and dirty from being in the water. Dr. Williams carefully examined Emily's body at the scene before having it transported to the medical examiner's office for a complete autopsy. Even this initial examination revealed signs of terrible violence. Emily had clearly suffered greatly during her final hours of life. The full autopsy took place the following day. Dr. Williams documented every injury on Emily's small body, taking photographs and collecting samples that would be tested for DNA evidence. What she found painted a horrific picture of the crimes that Thompson had committed against the 8-year-old girl. Emily's injuries showed that she had been the victim of extreme violence. Thompson had gagged her so forcefully that her gums and nostrils had bled. The little girl had been raped and sodomized, causing severe internal injuries that Dr. Williams said completely distorted Emily's anatomy. The strangulation that killed Emily had been particularly brutal. Thompson had squeezed her neck with such force that blood vessels had burst not only in her throat, but also in her face and eyes. Her eyeballs had actually bled from the pressure, showing just how violently she had been killed. Emily's body also showed evidence of blunt force trauma to her head. She had been hit or struck against something hard enough to cause serious injury. Ligature marks around her neck indicated that Thompson had used some kind of rope or cord to strangle her. Perhaps most heartbreaking of all were the defensive wounds found on Emily's hands and arms. These injuries proved that the brave little girl had fought for her life against her much larger attacker. At only 67 pounds, Emily had been no match for Thompson, but she had struggled until the very end. Dr. Williams also examined Thompson after his arrest. She found injuries on his body that were consistent with the violent assault on Emily. The injuries proved that Thompson had been in physical contact with Emily at the time of her death. The forensic evidence collected from Emily's body was overwhelming. DNA samples taken from multiple locations matched Thompson's genetic profile perfectly. The evidence was so strong that there was virtually no chance it could have come from anyone else. Detective Johnson worked closely with the crime lab to process all of the physical evidence. In addition to the DNA, investigators found fibers from Thompson's clothing on Emily's dress. They also discovered soil samples on Thompson's shoes that matched the dirt near the creek where Emily's body was found. The investigation revealed disturbing details about Thompson's background that explained how he had been able to commit such a terrible crime. Thompson was a registered sex offender with a long criminal history involving crimes against children. Court records showed that he had been in and out of prison for decades. Most shocking of all was the timing of Thompson's latest release from prison. He had been let out of jail just 3 weeks before he met Rebecca and Emily at the Dollar General store. During those 3 weeks, Thompson had been living in Jacksonville and looking for his next victim. Detective Johnson discovered that Thompson had a pattern of targeting vulnerable families. He would approach single mothers who appeared to be struggling financially and offer to help them. Once he gained their trust, he would look for opportunities to get their children alone. The investigation showed that Thompson's meeting with Rebecca at Dollar General was not a coincidence. He had been watching the store and waiting for the right family to approach. When he saw Rebecca looking at clothes with her 3 daughters, he knew he had found his target. Police also learned that Thompson had lied about everything he told Rebecca. He was not married and never had been. There was no wife with a Walmart gift card waiting to help buy clothes for the children. Thompson had made up the entire story to convince Rebecca to get in his van. The surveillance footage from Walmart became a key piece of evidence in the case. The cameras had recorded Thompson's behavior throughout the shopping trip, showing how he had gradually focused more and more attention on Emily while ignoring her younger sisters. The video also proved that Thompson had planned Emily's abduction well in advance. Instead of going to the McDonald's as he had promised, Thompson had walked directly to the exit doors. He knew exactly where he was going and what he was going to do. Detective Johnson interviewed dozens of witnesses who had been at Walmart that night. Most had not noticed anything unusual about Thompson and Emily leaving together. To them, it had looked like a grandfather taking his granddaughter home after a shopping trip. The investigation also revealed how Thompson had disposed of the evidence from the van. The stroller that Rebecca had brought to Walmart was never found. The bags of clothes they had been planning to buy had also disappeared. Thompson had gotten rid of anything that connected him to Emily and her family. Computer forensics experts examined Thompson's personal belongings, looking for any evidence of planning or premeditation. They found that Thompson had been researching locations around Jacksonville where he could take a victim without being seen. The evidence against Thompson was so overwhelming that Detective Johnson knew they had a strong case for court. The DNA evidence alone was enough to convict him, but combined with the surveillance video, witness testimony, and physical evidence, the case was ironclad. As the investigation continued, Detective Johnson learned more about Emily's personality and the impact her death had on the community. Emily had been a bright, cheerful child who loved to help her mother take care of her younger sisters. She had been excited about starting 3rd grade in the fall and had dreamed of becoming a teacher when she grew up. The investigation team worked around the clock to make sure that every piece of evidence was properly documented and preserved. They knew that Thompson's defense attorneys would challenge everything they found, so every step of the investigation had to be perfect. Within days of Thompson's arrest, Detective Johnson had enough evidence to charge him with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual battery. The charges carried the possibility of the death penalty if Thompson was convicted. All that remained was to present the evidence to a jury and let them decide Thompson's fate. The investigation had revealed the full horror of what Emily had endured during her final hours, but it had also shown the dedication of law enforcement, officers who worked tirelessly to get justice for a little girl who would never come home. Nearly 5 years passed between Emily Martinez's murder and the beginning of William Thompson's trial. During those years, Rebecca Martinez had to live with the guilt and grief of losing her daughter to a predator she had trusted. She moved away from Jacksonville to try to start over with her 2 surviving daughters, but the pain of Emily's death followed her everywhere. In February 2018, Thompson finally faced trial for the murder of 8-year-old Emily Martinez. The courtroom in downtown Jacksonville was packed with reporters, police officers, and community members who had followed the case since Emily's disappearance. Many people in Jacksonville remembered the massive search for Emily and wanted to see justice done. Judge Robert Cooper presided over the trial. Judge Cooper had handled many serious criminal cases during his career, but few had involved such horrific crimes against a child. He knew that the trial would be emotionally difficult for everyone involved, especially the jury members who would have to see and hear evidence about Emily's suffering. The prosecution team was led by State Attorney Maria Rodriguez, who had prosecuted child abuse cases for over 15 years. Rodriguez knew that winning a death penalty case required presenting overwhelming evidence, while also helping the jury understand the human impact of the crime. She was determined to get justice for Emily and her family. Thompson's defense was handled by attorney Karen Mitchell, a public defender with experience in capital murder cases. Mitchell faced an almost impossible task. The evidence against Thompson was overwhelming, and the crime was so horrible that most people wanted to see him executed. Her best hope was to convince the jury to spare Thompson's life and sentence him to prison instead of death. The trial began with jury selection, a process that took several days. Many potential jurors were dismissed because they said they could not be fair in a case involving the rape and murder of a child. Others were dismissed because they were completely opposed to the death penalty. Eventually, 12 jurors and several alternates were chosen to decide Thompson's fate. In her opening statement, State Attorney Rodriguez told the jury about Emily's final hours in detail that was difficult to hear. She explained how Thompson had targeted Rebecca and her family, gained their trust, and then used that trust to take Emily away from her mother forever. Rodriguez told the jury that Emily had not died quickly or easily. She said that Thompson had gagged Emily so violently that her gums bled, raped and sodomized her, and then strangled her with such force that blood vessels burst in her eyes. The prosecutor's words brought tears to the eyes of several jury members before the evidence was even presented. Defense attorney Mitchell had little choice but to admit that Thompson had killed Emily. The DNA evidence and surveillance video made it impossible to deny his guilt. Instead, Mitchell focused on trying to save Thompson's life by arguing that he suffered from mental illness and had a troubled childhood that led to his criminal behavior. The first witness called by the prosecution was Rebecca Martinez. Rebecca had dreaded this moment for years, knowing that she would have to relive the worst night of her life in front of a courtroom full of strangers. She walked slowly to the witness stand, her hands shaking as she was sworn in. Rebecca testified about meeting Thompson at Dollar General and how he had convinced her to go to Walmart. She told the jury about Thompson's friendly behavior during their shopping trip and how he had seemed genuinely interested in helping her family. Her voice broke as she described watching Emily skip away with Thompson toward the McDonald's, not knowing it would be the last time she would ever see her daughter alive. The jury listened intently as Rebecca played the 911 call she had made from Walmart. Her desperate voice filled the courtroom as she told the dispatcher that she feared Thompson would rape and kill Emily. Several jury members wiped away tears as they heard a mother's worst nightmare unfolding in real time. The most difficult part of the trial came when Dr. Patricia Williams took the witness stand to testify about Emily's autopsy. Dr. Williams had to describe Emily's injuries in medical detail, explaining exactly what Thompson had done to the little girl during her final hours. The prosecution showed autopsy photographs to the jury, despite strong objections from the defense. The pictures were so disturbing that several jury members began crying openly. Even some of the court reporters and bailiffs had to leave the room. Dr. Williams herself had to ask for a brief recess during her testimony because the emotional weight of describing Emily's injuries became too much to bear. Dr. Williams explained that Emily's injuries showed she had fought for her life against Thompson. The defensive wounds on her hands and arms proved that Emily had tried to protect herself. But at only 67 pounds, she had been no match for her adult attacker. The DNA evidence was presented by forensic expert Nicole Lee from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Crime Lab. Lee testified that DNA found on Emily's body matched Thompson's genetic profile perfectly. She told the jury that the chance of the DNA belonging to someone else was virtually zero. Surveillance footage from Walmart was played for the jury, showing Thompson and Emily shopping together and then leaving the store. The video showed Emily skipping happily beside Thompson, completely trusting the man who would kill her within hours. The contrast between Emily's innocent joy and the knowledge of what happened next was heartbreaking to watch. The prosecution called dozens of witnesses, including police officers who had searched for Emily, crime scene technicians who had processed evidence, and community members who had helped in the search. Each witness helped build the case that Thompson was guilty of first-degree murder and deserved the death penalty. When it came time for the defense to present their case, Attorney Mitchell called only a few witnesses. She presented evidence about Thompson's difficult childhood and his history of mental illness, hoping to convince the jury that these factors should spare him from execution. Mental health experts testified that Thompson suffered from various psychiatric disorders that may have contributed to his criminal behavior. However, the prosecution argued that mental illness did not excuse Thompson's actions or reduce his responsibility for Emily's death. The closing arguments took place on a Friday morning in February 2018. State Attorney Rodriguez reminded the UI's jury of Emily's suffering and asked them to hold Thompson accountable for his monstrous crimes. She argued that Thompson had shown no mercy to Emily and deserved none in return. Defense Attorney Mitchell made a final plea for Thompson's life, asking the jury to consider his mental illness and to choose life in prison over death. She argued that executing Thompson would not bring Emily back or heal her family's pain. The jury deliberated for less than a day before returning with their verdict. Thompson was found guilty on all charges: first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual battery. The same jury would now have to decide whether Thompson should be sentenced to death or life in prison. During the penalty phase of the trial, both sides presented additional evidence about Thompson's background and the impact of his crimes. Rebecca Martinez gave a victim impact statement, telling the jury how Emily's death had destroyed her family and asking them to make sure Thompson could never hurt another child. After deliberating on the sentence, the jury recommended death for Thompson. Judge Cooper followed the jury's recommendation and formally sentenced Thompson to death for Emily's murder. He also sentenced Thompson to life in prison for the kidnapping and sexual battery charges. As Judge Cooper read the death sentence, Rebecca Martinez burst into tears in the courtroom gallery. She told reporters afterward that while nothing could bring Emily back, she was relieved that Thompson would never be able to hurt another child the way he had hurt Emily. Thompson showed no emotion as his death sentence was read. He was taken back to prison to await his execution, though the appeals process would likely take many years. His attorneys immediately filed appeals, arguing that Thompson had not received a fair trial and that his death sentence should be overturned. Tontin trial provided some measure of justice for Emily Martinez and her family, but it could never undo the horror of her final hours or bring back the bright, cheerful little girl who had been so excited about her trip to California. Emily's case became a reminder of how predators can exploit the kindness and desperation of vulnerable families, and how quickly an offer of help can turn into unimaginable tragedy. In the years since Thompson's conviction, Rebecca Martinez has worked to honor Emily's memory by advocating for child safety and supporting other families who have lost children to violence. She has said that while the pain of losing Emily will never go away, she finds some comfort in knowing that Thompson will never be able to hurt another child the way he hurt her daughter. Emily Martinez would have turned 17 on Christmas Eve 2021. Instead of celebrating birthdays and watching her daughter grow up, Rebecca Martinez visits a cemetery where Emily's dreams and potential were buried along with her small body. The case remains one of Jacksonville's most heartbreaking reminders of the evil that exists in the world and the innocent children who sometimes fall victim to it.